The winningest team in the history of unlimited hydroplane racing is the Miss Budweiser racing team. The Miss Budweiser is the most recognizable racing vehicle in the world. Her red, white, and gold streamlined shape blazing 200 miles an hour across the water's surface is etched in the collective consciousness of motorsports fans and competitors around the world. The force behind the Miss Budweiser's success and the most powerful man in unlimited hydroplane racing, if not all of boat racing, is Bernie Little. For over 30 years, Bernie Little and his Miss Budweiser Unlimited Hydroplane Racing Team have made their competitive presence known in the water sport of kings.
The checker flag is waving, and it's another world championship for Bernie Little and Miss Budweiser.
A championship season is the goal of every serious boat racer. As important as individual race victories are, overall performance throughout the racing year is the truest test of a team's ability to work together and achieve competitive results. 14 times since 1969, Bernie Little's Miss Budweiser Unlimited Hydroplane Racing Team has demonstrated the consistency necessary to be world and national high point champions. 92 race victories, 14 world championships, 9-time winner of the prestigious American Powerboat Association Gold Cup. Bernie Little and his Miss Budweiser Unlimited Hydroplane Racing Team have earned a place in the history books as one of the fastest, winningest, and safest racing teams in all of motorsports. As racing technology has changed and improved over the years, and as the faces of drivers and crew change year to year, one key element and the driving force behind the efforts of the world's most successful dynasty in all of boat racing has remained the same: Bernie Little. It was at this time, 1962, that a newspaper article caught Bernie Little's attention, and the sport of unlimited hydroplane racing was changed forever.
I'd never, ever seen an unlimited hydroplane race in my life, and I was reading the newspaper, and Guy Lombardo had a place called Guy Lombardo's Port of Call over in St. Petersburg. They were just building it, and it was a big land development. So I picked up the phone when I saw that, and it had a picture of this Gold Cupper. I called Guy and said, Guy, gee, can I come over and see that boat? He said, sure, why don't you come over and have lunch? And I said, boy, I'd love to. And I get a ride in it? He said, sure. So, boy, I went over there. I just couldn't wait. I got a ride in the boat. I asked him if I could drive it, and he said, yeah, and I took it up to 130, 40 mile an hour in St. Petersburg in the bay. And I come back. I never was so thrilled with anything in my life, and I had to buy it. I just knew I had to buy it. And he told me that he didn't own it, that it was owned by Lester Stodiker. And I said, well, would you be interested in trading this on a real nice 38-foot Chris Craft? I said, I just bought me a new boat. It's gorgeous. And I had $75,000 in this boat. And he said, well, he'd look at it. I took him up. He looked at the boat, and I said, how do you trade? He said, well, I'll just trade you even for everything. I said, you got a deal.
Little renamed the boat Tempo in honor of Guy Lombardo and decided to run the four-seater in the APBA Unlimited Hydroplane Series. The first race of the 1963 season and the first race of Bernie Little's unlimited hydroplane racing career was the Dixie Cup held in Guntersville, Alabama.
Guy convinced me that he knew the greatest driver in the world, and this boat would just win everything. And so we went to Guntersville, Alabama, and I said to him, now don't blow that boat up before I get there or anything. I want to see it run. We fly up there, and just as we drove in the pit area, I wanted to impress everybody with my limousine, my new boat, everything, of course. And so as we drove to the pit area, I looked out, and they're towing my boat in. And I said, well, what's happening? What's happening? He said, well, he went out to qualify, and he blew the bump to the engine.
The team rushed to replace the blown engine, but much to Bernie's chagrin, the replacement power plant had its crankshaft installed backwards. The race was over for the Tempo. The sting of that embarrassing beginning just made Little all the more determined. He immediately reorganized his team and battled to a sixth-place finish in the national points race that season. That same year, 1963, a momentous meeting took place that has proven as important to unlimited hydroplane racing as any performance or technological improvements: the introduction of Anheuser-Busch and Budweiser beer into the sport.
I was operating the Peter O. Knight Airport in Tampa when August Busch came in, and this was just after I had bought the first Miss Budweiser, or it was actually the Tempo at the time. And it was sitting at the side of the airport there, and we'd pulled it out of the hangar, and it was sitting up on the trailer and everything, and gee, it was just beautiful. He came driving in, and he wanted to rent an airplane to go to the Bahamas, and so I was glad to do that for him, and he said, "What is that?" And I told him, and then he said, "We get that boat out?" "Sure, we can take that boat out." And so he and I and a couple of his vice presidents took a ride. And I asked him if he wanted to drive, and he said, "Sure." And so he took it out and went down to bay, and he's doing 130 mile an hour. One of his vice presidents was beating on top of his helmet because he was scared to death. So we turned around and went back, and anyhow, it was a great thrill for him as it was a great thrill for me. And that's how it all started.
The former Tempo, now rechristened Miss Budweiser, was a true promotional tool. The unique four-seat design did not make her the fastest boat on the water, but what she gave up in speed, she more than made up for in publicity.
We never won any races, but we took all of the press, all the newspaper people who ride in the boat, and we're getting all the publicity, and we wasn't really caring much about winning the race. We were just having a lot of fun.
Having won the publicity championship of 1963, but no race victories, Bernie Little and the fledgling Miss Budweiser racing team set about the business of building a winning tradition. The sport of unlimited hydroplane racing was nothing new in the early 60s. Since just after the turn of the century, men such as the legendary Gar Wood had been making their mark on waters across the nation. But it was immediately following World War II that the direct descendant of the unlimited hydros we know today came into being. This was due primarily to the availability of the Allison and Rolls-Royce engines that had been powering Allied aircraft in the skies over Europe and Asia. By the early 60s, boats such as the Miss Bardol, Miss Thriftway, Gale, and Notre Dame were the powerhouses of the sport. In those days, drivers practically wrestled their racecraft around courses as much as 3 miles long at speeds just over 125 miles per hour. Then, as now, a slight miscalculation could mean instant disaster. Indeed, unlimited hydroplane racing was a rough and tumble fly-by-the-seat-of-your-pants sport.
You think you're at a rodeo. Wasn't as sophisticated as it is today. You had the conventional hydroplane where the driver sat over the prop and back. They were a lot of camaraderie. Competition was there, but it wasn't like it is today. There were no secrets. They shared secrets. They'd trade engine parts. They'd do anything. They were just a bunch of guys having a lot of fun going around the country showing their rooster tails to millions of people. And the prize money, total, around that era was about $17,500 total. So you weren't racing for the prize money. You're racing for your sponsor, for recognition, and Bernie's always done that.
It was into this atmosphere of hard work, camaraderie, and competition that the Miss Budweiser racing team set out to make its mark. Bernie Little's Miss Budweiser team did not win any races in 1964 or 65, although they did begin to make final round appearances. The team made steady improvement, had some disappointments, but kept moving ahead and learning the ins and outs of fender boat racing. After 3 years of hard work and development, it was in 1966 that the Miss Budweiser, with driver Bill Brow in the cockpit, captured their first unlimited hydroplane checkered flag on the Columbia River in Tri-Cities, Washington, at the '66 Atomic Cup. The drought had ended for Bernie Little and the Miss Budweiser racing team, and they had begun their march into boat racing history.
Along with first place, they gave away a little Honda motor scooter, and I kept that thing forever till I finally had to give it away. It was a great thrill, one of the greatest thrills. I just can't tell you, to after 5 years, whatever, to really go out and win the race, you know, it really was a great thrill for all of my crew and myself.
The Miss Budweiser became a regular final round competitor and scored more victories through the 60s. But 2 very important goals had yet to be reached: the Unlimited Hydroplane National Championship and the coveted APBA Gold Cup, boat racing's most treasured trophy. 1969 ushered in the first golden age of Miss Budweiser's dominance in the sport of unlimited hydroplane racing. With 4 wins in 7 races, Bernie Little claimed his first national High Point Championship title. After 7 years in the sport, Little had become the top owner in unlimited hydroplane racing. In the last race of the '69 season, Bernie and his team won for the first time the ultimate prize in boat racing, the APBA Gold Cup. The race was in San Diego, and Little's driver Bill Starrett, in what was called at the time the Super Bud, faced off against opponents Dean Chenoweth and Mers Special. Jim McCormick in Atlas Van Lines, and Tommy Foltz in pride of Pay and Pack for the National Boat and Driver Championships, as well as the Gold Cup trophy. It all came down to a face-off between Chenoweth in Murr's Special and Sterrett in Bernie Little's Miss Budweiser. Having clinched the National High Points title in earlier heats, the second-place finish in the final earned Bill Sterrett the driver's title and Bernie Little and the Miss Budweiser racing team their first Gold Cup victory.
Bill Sterrett and Miss Budweiser, the big winners, 1969.
After winning the Gold Cup and the National Championship, Bill Sterrett retired from racing. That left the driver's seat open in the Miss Budweiser. Bernie Little chose young Dean Chenoweth, who just the year before had been the runner-up for Driver of the Year honors behind Sterrett. The association between Little and Chenoweth would be one that would take the Miss Budweiser racing team to legendary status. In 1970, with Chenoweth in the cockpit, the Miss Budweiser racing team matched the performance of the year before, winning the National High Point Championship and 4 races, including the Gold Cup at San Diego. Bernie Little's Miss Budweiser racing team had another banner year in 1971, winning their 3rd straight National High Points title the last race of the season. Through the following years in the early to mid-70s, the Miss Budweiser team fought battles in heat after heat with rivals Pay and Pack and Atlas Van Lines. In 1977, the legendary Thunderbolt pilot Bill Munsey and the Blue Blaster won 6 of 9 races. The other 3 were won by Bernie Little and the Miss Budweiser, with Mickey Riemann behind the wheel. The Atlas was the best designed and fastest boat on the circuit. However, Little and the Miss Budweiser took the High Point crown on the basis of 100% reliability during the season. 28 heats started and 28 heats finished. A remarkable feat by even today's standards in any form of motorsport. Then as now, Little knew that in order to win a boat race, you had to finish. In addition to the Miss Budweiser, Bernie Little campaigned a second unlimited entry in 1977, the Anheuser-Busch Natural Light. Piloted by Tom Sheehy, the Natural Light finished 3rd in national points behind Miss Bud and the Atlas. It was during this era that the rivalry intensified between Little's Miss Budweiser and Bill Munsey's Atlas Van Lines. While they fought tooth and nail on the racecourse, Little and Munsey shared a mutual respect.
Bill Munsey made me lose many nights' sleep because he was one of the toughest competitors that we've ever challenged. And Bill, I just had so much admiration for him because the reputation he got of being a good driver, he earned it. He just did an outstanding job for the sport, and I'm proud to say he was a good friend.
Bernie's good friend, Bill Munsey, kept the Miss Budweiser racing team at bay, winning back-to-back national championships in 78 and 79 with the Atlas Van Lines. So in 1980, after a year of development, Miss Budweiser, the 10th, made her debut. The major change in the boat was the switch to the Rolls-Royce Griffin engine from the standard Rolls Merlin, which most of the other teams ran. Bernie Little was gambling that the new, lighter and more powerful engine could help the Miss Budweiser racing team displace Munsey and the Atlas as the sport's #1 team. But the technological improvements weren't the only weapons in the Miss Budweiser arsenal. Out of retirement, Dean Chenoweth was back in the cockpit of the new Miss Bud, ready to face rival Munsey and all comers on the unlimited waters. With Chenoweth behind the wheel of Bernie Little's new and improved Miss Budweiser, the team won the first 20 heats of competition and took the checkered flag in the first 5 races in a row, including the Gold Cup in Madison, Indiana. Bernie Little and his team were back on top. They arrived in Seattle, Washington, looking for win number 6, when disaster struck. During qualifying, the rudder came off the boat, sending her into a double inside barrel roll, ejecting Chenoweth from the cockpit and causing extensive hull damage. Chenoweth suffered serious injuries in this, his second blowover incident in the Miss Budweiser. Chenoweth was lucky to survive this high-speed slam into Lake Washington. Fate had sent Chenoweth a message. The points earned by the secondary boat with the recovered Chenoweth back in the cockpit were enough to capture a 5th national championship for Bernie Little and Miss Budweiser. Chenoweth and Little shared a very special bond that exists between men determined to reach a specific goal. And for Bernie, Dean, and the entire Miss Budweiser racing team, the goal was a simple one: win.
On Sunday, I would take a hold of Dean as he'd come out of the truck, and I'd take a hold of his life jacket and say, "Now, Dean, today is payday. That's all you'd have to tell Dean is today is payday. And whatever was there, he'd win it.
Following their triumph in 1980, the Miss Budweiser racing team scored their 6th national title in '81, winning 6 out of 8 races, including the Gold Cup and the repaired 1980 hull. The races were highlighted by the ongoing battles between Bernie Little's Miss Bud and the ever-present Bill Munsey in the Blue Blaster Atlas van lines. Another competitor was just beginning to make his mark in the sport of unlimited hydroplane racing, piloting the Squire Shop entry from Seattle, Washington, young Chip Hanauer. 1981 was also a noteworthy year in boat racing history as Bernie Little became the first owner ever to win national titles in both unlimited hydroplane and offshore powerboat racing. Little had run successful offshore racing teams since 1977. In 1981, offshore racing legend Betty Cook piloted Little's Michelob Light Ocean Racer to a 3rd national title. This, with his unlimited hydro championship, made Bernie Little the first owner in the history of boat racing to win titles in both sports. All accomplishments made in boat racing in 1981 will be overshadowed by the loss of one of the sport's all-time greats. Bill Munsey was fatally injured in the season-concluding World Cup race in Acapulco, Mexico. The following year, it was the Budweiser team's time to mourn. Driver Dean Chenoweth lost his life behind the wheel of the Miss Budweiser in a qualifying accident on the Columbia River in Tri-Cities, Washington.
Hydroplane racing lost its biggest name Saturday in a tragic accident on the Columbia River. 44 years.
That was a bad day in my life. In many lives, and we were out running very well, and we were going for a qualifying run, and we always like to be the fastest qualifier. So as we went out for the run, the boat just absolutely went upside down and disintegrated, and of course I jumped in a boat and ran out there as the divers got Dean out, and Dean was just absolutely was dead on arrival at the hospital. And so that's when we said, well, you know, we've got to get out of boat racing or something's got to happen.
The entire boat racing fraternity was stunned. 2 of its brightest stars gone in less than a year. In total, 13 racers had lost their lives in the sport of unlimited hydroplane racing since the advent of the modern age in 1946. The outlook for continuing racing was bleak. Many felt the cost in human lives was just too great a risk.
I think it took Bernie's strength and his personality to keep things glued together, to keep things going forward. Sometimes I think the sport wouldn't even be here today, wouldn't have suffered through some of its lowest points had Bernie not been there to help it through.
Once again, Bernie Little and the Budweiser team made it their job to revolutionize the sport by developing the enclosed cockpit canopy system.
We just had to come up with an answer. So that's when we got a hold of NASA and everyone we could talk with to see about how we could enclose them, whether we need to pressurize the cockpit or what we needed to do to keep the driver safe.
It took 3 years to develop, but keeping his commitment to make the sport safer, Bernie Little debuted the 11th Miss Budweiser with an aircraft-style canopy. This was the first unlimited hydroplane with a fully enclosed cockpit designed to protect the driver from water impact. Just like all new creations, the Bubble Bud, as she was known, had her share of growing pains. Little knew all too well that in order to take several big steps forward, sometimes you have to take a step or 2 back first.
It cost them that year. I mean, they really did not perform very well and did not have a very good year. But look at the lives. I mean, it's there's 5 or 6 of us walking around down here this weekend that wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that.
Since the introduction of the safety canopy system by the Budweiser team, no one has died in unlimited hydroplane racing. Without a doubt, the enclosed cockpit canopy system is the greatest single development in the 91-year history of the sport.
I guess everybody would like to be remembered for something good they've done in their life, and I think building the enclosed cockpit will be remembered forever.
Although Little did not win the High Point Championship with the Bubble Butt in 1985, he proved his point about the viability of an enclosed cockpit. The experiment was a great success. As a result, the safety canopy is now mandatory on all unlimited hydroplanes, thanks to the dedication of Bernie Little. Miss Budweiser's pilot in '85 was Jim Kropfeld. Kropfeld had been Dean Chenoweth's own suggestion a successor to his seat in the Miss Budweiser. Kropfeld drove Bernie Little's Budweiser team to a 7th national title in 1984. Kropfeld did manage to score 2 wins in 1985, despite the steep learning curve encountered with the canopy application. Lucky for Jim that he was a quick study, because as well as learning to run an unlimited hydro from inside the confines of a fully enclosed cockpit, schoolmaster Bernie Little had another assignment for his driver in 1986. Since the 60s, unlimited teams had been experimenting with a new form of power plant, jet turbines. The Lycoming T-55 L7 turbine engine is used extensively by the U.S. military for the Chinook helicopter. The Atlas Van Lines team had refined the turbine engine to a reliable race-winning power plant in 1984. The following year, Chip Hanauer, piloting the Miller American, won the national title with turbine power. The world of unlimited hydroplane racing was changing once again. 23-year veteran Bernie Little had won 7 national titles with piston-powered World War II aircraft engines and was reluctant to make the change.
I fought it right up to until I just couldn't fight it anymore, because the Thunderboats, back at the Thunderboats, I love the thunder from the Thunderboats. And selfishly, I had so much equipment, I'd bought all of these race teams out. My gosh, when I sit and think about all of the equipment I had in warehouses and place I had it stored, I thought, what am I going to do? Because if I go turbine, it's going to obsolete all of it. And it did.
The 1986 Unlimited Hydro season dawned with a new 2-boat Miss Budweiser racing team. Budweiser crew chief Ron Brown was charged with the upkeep of the old reliable Rolls-Royce Griffin-powered unlimited hydroplane, driven by Scott Pierce, and the new Lycoming turbine-powered craft piloted by Jim Kropfeld. 3 races into the campaign, Little became convinced that turbine power was the only way to be competitive in the sport. He promptly retired the Griffin boat, put all of his team's energy into the turbine program, and achieved almost immediate success. Driver Kropfeld quickly adapted from the piston to the turbine equipment, winning 3 races in '86 and 5 races in '87, securing back-to-back national championships for Bernie Little and the Miss Budweiser racing team. Little's Miss Budweiser was not the only beer wagon on the unlimited circuit during these years. Fran Muncy, widow of the late Bill Muncy, headed up the competitive Miller American entry driven by Chip Hanauer. In fact, Little and the Miss Budweiser team won the 1986 National Point Crown by a slim 31-point margin over arch-rival Miller. In the 1988 season opener in Miami Marine Stadium, the Budweiser team was dealt a serious blow when Jim Kropfeld was critically injured in a collision with former teammate Scott Pierce in the Jif Presents Mr. Pringles. Even with both drivers sustaining serious injuries, the cockpit canopy is credited with saving both men's lives. The outlook for a 3rd straight national championship season for the Budweiser team looked grim. In stepped veteran unlimited hydroplane pilot Tom Deeth of Detroit. Deeth had retired from racing in 1986, but the opportunity to take the Miss Budweiser into battle is one that few drivers could resist. Deeth took the reins of the Miss Budweiser and drove the team to victory in 4 races in '88, winning the team's 10th national championship, and went on in 1989 to pilot the Miss Bud to an unprecedented 4th consecutive national title. In the long history of unlimited hydroplane competition, Bernie Little is the only owner to win 4 consecutive High Point championships. The Budweiser racing team's constant nemesis during the late 80s and early 90s was the Miss Circus, driven by now veteran driver and 7-time Gold Cup champion Chip Hanauer. In the '89 Gold Cup in San Diego, Tom Deeth piloted Bernie Little's Miss Budweiser to victory in the final heat, snapping Chip Hanauer's 7-year monopoly and securing boat racing's most valued prize once again for the Budweiser team. In the 1990 campaign, Bernie Little and the Miss Budweiser team, with Tom Deeth behind the wheel, won the Gold Cup race in Detroit, as well as 5 other races. The season was highlighted by the Miss Budweiser being the first unlimited hydroplane to top the 160-mile-per-hour mark. 6 race wins, including the APBA Gold Cup and Bernie Little's 75th career win in Honolulu, unbelievably, was not enough to take the title in '90. That honor went to arch-rival Chip Hanauer in the Circus Circus. During the off-season, Tom Deeth was participating in a NASCAR event at the Charlotte Motor Speedway when he was injured in this multi-car incident. Former driver Scott Pierce answered the call and drove the Miss Budweiser to 3 race wins and an unprecedented 12th National High Point Championship for owner Bernie Little in 1991. As one of the few men who have piloted the most famous race boat in the world, Pierce was eager for the opportunity.
You can't forget an experience like being the driver of the Miss Budweiser. I mean, it is a very, very culmination. Anyone that's ever driven a race boat, from whatever age they started, you know, the ultimate is to drive the Miss Budweiser. So few have ever been blessed enough to have the opportunity to perform in that arena, and it's just, you know, it's a great honor, it really is.
Miss Budweiser owner Bernie Little has maintained his status as the winningest owner in the history of unlimited racing by always looking for a way to improve his team. Little accomplished just that by signing longtime rival Chip Hanauer to drive the Miss Budweiser in 1992.
A lot of people really thought Chip and I hated each other because we had such a rivalry going, and we did. However, we had a lot of respect for each other. I always said someday that I want Chip to drive my boat, and I said if the time ever works out right, and he retired from racing, and so he was out of it a year. Therefore, it opened up the door for me to call Chip, and I did, and we had a phone call and the phone call conversation, and we have a handshake, and we have a deal.
Even before I worked for the team, I would be sitting on an airplane and someone would ask what I do for a living, for example. And I would say I drive an unlimited hydroplane, and I would see a kind of a quiz look on their face, and they'd say, well, what's that? And I'd say, well, it's this big racing boat. And they still couldn't get an image in their mind of what I was talking about. And then finally they would say, you mean like the Miss Budweiser? You go, yeah, like the Miss Budweiser. As an opponent in racing, Bernie is intense. He wants to win very, very badly. When you beat Bernie and you beat his team, it's a great feeling because you know that you've beaten somebody who's done absolutely everything they can that's legal and safe to win. So there's a great deal of satisfaction in beating the Budweiser team and beating Bernie. And even though now I'm with the team, some of my proudest moments have come at the expense of Budweiser and Bernie Little because I know I beat, you know, somebody that's absolutely dedicated to winning. When I came to Budweiser, I expected it to be kind of a, you know, a very professional, maybe a little bit cold race team that was here to do business, and that was it. But it's been a very warm and enjoyable atmosphere, and especially from Bernie, and that is a huge surprise for me. I found Bernie to be generous and supportive and caring, and also funny. Bernie has a great sense of humor. The other thing I take from Bernie is I tend to be a bit of a Chicken Little. I always think that there's this disaster around the next corner and that the sky is about to fall. He is the eternal optimist. He always believes that something even better is just around the corner. And that's very infectious, and it's been a big help to me to be around somebody as positive as Bernie is. I think there's been 2 personalities in the sport, in the history of the sport, that have had this unbelievable childlike enthusiasm for it, and that was Bill Munsey and Bernie Little. And Bernie, I think, is a caretaker of the sport. He worries about it. He not only works at making his team competitive, but I think he worries and works at making the whole sport the best it can be.
Winners have an affinity for each other. Bernie and Chip are no exception. The winningest unlimited owner of all time and the winningest active driver in unlimited racing combined to capture the fastest qualifying times for every event. 6 wins, including the Gold Cup, and a 13th National High Point Championship for the Miss Budweiser racing team in 1992. It was not all smooth sailing, though. En route to the national title, Little's team had to fight it out on the waters across the country against the Winston Eagle of Steve Woolmer with Mark Tate behind the wheel. In addition to tough competition, Hanauer and the Miss Bud also had 2 serious incidents in competition.
Here's the
start of Heat 1A as we look out on the course of the Miss Budweiser coming up hard on the inside. She's got a little distance to catch up. Chip Hanauer powers hard into the turn. He gets airborne. Chip Hanauer going over in turn number 1. He was trying to break to the front of the pack. He had the inside lane. He's upside down in the water.
Hanauer was injured in each incident, but returned to competition after both blowovers. In 1993, the winning tradition continued with Bernie and the Miss Budweiser racing team with Chip Hanauer in the cockpit, rolling up 7 event wins and a 14th national crown. But 93 will be remembered as the year that Little and Hanauer each claimed their 9th APBA Gold Cup victory. 9 times since 1969, the names of Bernie Little and Miss Budweiser have been etched into the face of the Gold Cup trophy and into boat racing history.
For me, the Gold Cup is everything. When you're a young child and you want to grow up to be a tennis player, for example, you dream of winning Wimbledon. If you grow up as a baseball player, you dream of winning the World Series. And if you grow up as a child wanting to be a boat racer, you dream of winning the Gold Cup. And it's because I think of the heritage and the prestige that goes with that. And it's by far the most important single race we have.
92 race victories, 14 world championships, 9-time winner of the prestigious American Powerboat Association Gold Cup. Now, the winningest team in unlimited hydroplane history, Bernie Little's Miss Budweiser, has set their sights on the future. A new and improved Miss Budweiser is on the way that will take the team into the 21st century. The 19th Miss Budweiser, the Turbine 4, will be unlike anything ever seen on unlimited waters before. Veteran crew chief Ron Brown, who has seen the Miss Bud team move from open cockpit piston power to enclosed safety canopy turbine power, is now overseeing the latest innovation in the sport. Utilizing experimental surface effect vehicle concepts, the new boat features a unique tandem wing design developed to provide enhanced stability and improved control, making higher speeds possible while greatly reducing the chances of a blowover type of accident. It is this type of forward thinking that has enabled Bernie Little and the Miss Budweiser racing team to endure over 3 championship decades in the toughest and most sophisticated sport on the water. Host has always been the same: to have a boat that reflects the excellence of its corporate sponsor in a manner that reflects credit and prestige on the sport in which it is involved. The brewery recognizes the positive influence that Little and the Miss Budweiser team provides to the Budweiser brand. To that end, Anheuser-Busch has seen to it that Little has the resources to keep the Budweiser name out front, and that is exactly what Bernie does. For over 3 decades, Little and the Miss Budweiser racing team have been a major force on the racecourse and a major promotional force delivering brand exposure effectively to mass consumer audiences. Bernie Little is truly a champion in both sport and business.
the Miss Budweiser with driver Jim Kropfeld. Judging by all standards, this is the fastest race boat in the world. And when you put the fastest race boat in the world on the fastest race course in the world, incredible things can happen. And they have. The Unlimiteds are next. Columbia Crest Winery presents the 1987 Unlimited Hydroplane Series. Today from Tri-Cities, Washington, the Budweiser Columbia Cup. Brought to you by Ford. Have you driven a Ford lately? By Household Finance Corporation, America's #1 financial services company. And by U-Haul International. Rent it all at U-Haul Centers. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tri-Cities, Washington. I'm here with Jim Kropfeld, the driver of the Miss Budweiser, which set a world record during qualifying this week at better than 155 miles per hour. And Jim, this boat has gained quite a reputation as picking up most of that speed in the turns rather than the straightaways.
Well, we talked about it last year, and this is what we really wanted. We wanted a boat that would turn quick, accelerate quick, and not go too fast on top end. Anything over 165 to me is getting a little more dangerous than I like to do. So we try to keep the top end down but go quick in the turns.
This course, as we said at the beginning of the show, has a reputation as being the fastest course in the world. Chip Hanauer went 153 here 2 years ago, and now Jim goes 155. Any special butterflies or feelings or concerns when you come onto this course?
Well, you know, the Budweiser hasn't won here in 9 years, and I've never won here, so I guess I get a little anxiety. Pains going here, but it's a fast course, and the faster we have to go, the more unsafe it becomes, and the more alert the driver has to be, the more cognizant of all the water effects and air effects and the other boats around him. And it's a hard course to drive, even though it's a good, smooth course.
Okay. Well, the man who won 2 weeks ago back in Detroit is with Jim Hendrick right now. Let's get some words from him. Jim?
Okay, Don, the man who did win in Detroit a couple of weeks ago, how hard would it be to repeat with this field?
Well, it was hard in Detroit, and it's going to be hard here, Jim, but the Pringles is improving, as you know, every week. We've run some 25 laps here, all over 130 mile an hour, and I feel real confident that a couple breaks go our way, and I do a skookum job of driving the Mr. Pringles. We might get another win.
Speaking of skookum jobs, you really held off to Miller. I noticed you went outside, you went inside, you were just playing games out there in Detroit.
Well, you know, Chip's won a lot of races. He has a lot of experience, and he's an excellent driver, but I feel that I can run with him, and I just wanted to show him what the back end of a boat looks like. It's probably been a couple years since he's seen that, so we plan on giving him a little more.
Okay, Scotty, thank you very much. We're about set to go for action out here for the Heat 1A. The schedule, here's Don.
Jim, this is by far the biggest field we've had in 1987. We have a total of 11 boats. Here's a look at Heat 1A. First of all, out of Seattle, just over the mountains, Jerry Hopp in the Miss Jackpot Food Mart. Secondly, Pepsi America's Choice and Mitch Evans from Lake Chelan, Washington. Jack Berry making his debut as an unlimited driver in the Miss Rock KISW. Ron Snyder coming out from Ohio, racing the Holson Miss Madison, qualifying at just under 120. George Woods, likewise a new driver, coming up to the Unlimiteds, driving the Oboy Oberto. And finally, the man who set a world record, Jim Kropfeld, and the Miss Budweiser. So that means we've got 5 boats in Heat 1B. And Jim, you got the lineup?
Well, checking the starting board for 1B, it's true, Don. There are 5 boats in this coming heat of 1B. 2 of the boats are the turbines. Jack Schaefer will drive the U-17 Tempest. Milner Irvin coming back to action for the first time this year, driving Frank Kenny Toyota Mazda Volvo.
Build a website you love with Wix. For your words,
Todd Yarlett and Pietro's Pizza, his sponsor for this event. Scott Pierce and Mr. Pringles, the winner of the Detroit race. And rounding out the field, Chip Hanauer in the Miller.
As you can see. But our hats off to the national Series sponsor Irvin. He'll be driving the Frank Kenny Toyota. George Woods out of Seattle, his first ever unlimited hydroplane final heat. The owner of the boat and crew chief, Jim Harvey, assisting. And the man everybody wants to beat, Jim Kropfeld and the Budweiser. He would not be in the final if it were not for this man, Ron Snyder, finishing second in Heat 2B. Here is the field, the Pringles, the Madison, the Alberto, Kenny Toyota, Miller American, the Bud, and the alternate is Pietro's Pizza, that being Todd Yarling out of Madison, Indiana. All boats are running. We have 6 boats. This is Todd Yarling. He is in the final. We believe we have just gotten word the Madison has gone back to the pits with an oil leak, and here comes the start for the final. You heard the gun. The Budweiser in about lane number 3, heading for the first turn on these long straightaways. Look how smooth the course is as the Budweiser and Jim Kropfeld chases for his 4th victory. That's what he wants. His 4th victory in 1987 and his first ever here in Tri-Cities. He's never won. The Miller on the inside. Chip getting way up. Oh, on the inside. Look at that. He got a little bit of the wake of the Budweiser. His right spot's going way up. He is holding on to second place, however, as he goes down the back straightaway. Yes, the Madison going back into the pits with some sort of problem. Looks like an oil leak. Oil all over the sleeves of Ron Snyder. And here is the Budweiser. Oh, getting a little out of shape into that turn. Kropfeld holding on and getting it back in good shape down the main straightaway. Budweiser, first place. Miller American, second place. The race for 3rd and 4th, the Pringles coming up on the inside against the Oboy Alberto. We got to get a time on the Budweiser here in lap number 1. He is screaming down the main straightaway. Speed for the Budweiser, 146.4 miles per hour, blowing away the course record for a competition lap. 3rd place, the Pringles, but 1st place, this man, after 25 years of racing, he is driving in what some consider to be the perfect hydroplane, the Miss Budweiser. Brand new this year, the Miller American. Chip Hanauer holding on to 2nd place is the Budweiser crew. Tim Ramsey in front, one of the crew members of the Budweiser. Again, the Miller American in 2nd place, the Budweiser in 1st, the Pringles in 3rd place, Scott Pierce, the winner in Detroit on that bumpy Detroit River 2 weeks ago. The Budweiser and the Budweiser team not winning here in 9 years. The last time they did it, Ron Snyder was the driver for Bernie Little, and now, thanks to Ron Snyder, the Budweiser made it into the final heat by virtue of points in the preliminary heats. The Budweiser, the Miller American in 2nd place, the Pringles and Scott Pierce in 3rd place coming down, and Todd Yarling in the Pietro's Pizza currently in 6th place. Look how rocky it is as you join Todd now going around that first turn by the bridge. As you can see, the whole world is going by in a real hurry at that speed. The Budweiser going down the back chute. Here's the Oboy Alberto. George Woods and a Merlin engine inside there. That used to be the staple engine. This is the Griffin engine, turbocharged. 3 of them are connected to that Griffin engine. The Budweiser coming up, trying to lap Todd Yarling as he comes around the outside. Look at this boat. The profile, everything about it says speed. The Miller American, they're trying to tame this boat down. They worked on the sponsons prior to Detroit. They have a new air scoop here in the final in Tri-Cities, and this time it's going to belong to the Budweiser. 9 dry years, and the Budweiser picks up a victory here in Tri-Cities, the Budweiser Columbia Cup. Bernie Little getting victory number 60 in his career, and the Miller American coming in 2nd place. 3rd goes to the Mr. Pringles and Scotty Pierce, but they win overall points. The most points of any boat today in Tri-Cities. 4th place to the Oboy Alberto. And 5th place to the Kenny Toyota and Milner Irvin. So the numbers, the Budweiser getting a victory here in Tri-Cities. Boy, it's been a long time. The Miller American, defending winner here from last year, gets 2nd. The Pringles, Oboy Alberto, the Kenny Toyota, Pietro's Pizza, coming in after being an alternate, picks up 6th place. Down to the winner's circle. Jim, big swig. Congratulations. I know you were worried about this one. After 9 years, Bernie got a win here.
Well, my first win and Bernie's first one in 9 years was like it was a jinx here or something, but I think we conquered it with the crew we got here. These guys gave me a piece of equipment that you couldn't believe. It's fantastic.
Well, you had a 140.